Welcome back. Welcome back to another training. Today we're going to be discussing the ideal staff structure for a 4 to 6 bed residential assisted living. A practical staffing and cost model designed for efficiency, compliance, and quality care, prepared by AlanChaney.com. Welcome back. Good day. Let's get into it. Um, So when you're thinking about staffing, these are some of the things you want to think about, especially when you got a smaller facility. You got to get it right because the majority of your money, your income is going to go towards your staff. And if you don't staff properly, you will lose. You can easily be in a losing situation. So to um to combat that, to prepare for that, we want to walk you through a couple of these different thoughts and ideas. So the first thing you want to think about is optimizing your small system living staff model. Understanding key roles, staff cost structure, coverage, and scheduling, which is important, and then optimize performance, training, retention, and cost control. Core staff goals. The goals of your staff is going to be, you know, maintain quality care, prioritize residents' well-being while building operational efficiency. So that's like the balance right there. Ensure compliance, always meet or exceed all state regulatory requirements. So you got to stay on top of your documentation. It's all about documentation pretty much. Once you get licensed, it's just keeping up with the documentation. And then minimizing fixed costs, create flexibility in payroll to match occupancy. So you're always thinking about as you get residents, as you have, your first 1 or 2 residents, you're going to have a certain staff structure. 3, 4 is going to change. 5, 6 is going to change. You're going to need more help and less help. If you go down one, so you're going to have to remain flexible, and build scalability. And, you by building scalability, we mean, coming up with a great system that you can implement in your next facility. Design a model that grows with your business. Assistant living manager. So this is um this should be you in the first property. If it can't be you, it's income that you're kind of letting, go. And most new operators, I suggest, do this themselves, so they can control that, have have total understanding of what's going on in their facility. They get that operational experience, but then also they get to keep that money that they don't have to pay somebody else to do it. So, and the core responsibilities are oversee daily operations and quality of care, maintain compliance with state regulations, communicate with families, referral sources, and maintain relationships with the residents, create and manage staff schedules, handle residents' admissions, and assessments that could be done in conjunction with your nurse as well. I would suggest um having the nurse go do assessments before you admit, but yeah, we'll talk about that a little later. Manage facility budget and purchasing, like all the things that the facility needs as far as um taking care of the bills, like the monthly bills, and then payroll, and then groceries and supplies and stuff like that, events and transportation. These are all the things that the assistant living manager is responsible for. Minimum pay, you could probably get away with 1750 a month. Um for a smaller facility, say like 4 beds. But as the load gets a little heavier, the going rate, say for a 6 bed, is about 2,500 um per month. They're not there daily or hourly, but they do have a responsibility to come in and make sure things are done on a consistent basis throughout the month. So it's more like a salary situation. So the pro tip is, if in your first facility, consider managing it yourself to save costs and fully understand operations. So then you have to also have, so we're going to break down the staff structure. So you got the assisted living manager, and then you got the alternate manager that you have to have, especially here in Maryland. So backup if you or your manager isn't available. So the alternate manager provides backup coverage with the primary manager when the primary manager is unavailable, ensuring continuous regulatory compliance and operational oversight. So there's no lapse of oversight. There's never not a assistant living manager in place. So if your manager goes on vacation or you go on vacation or you get sick or you're just unavailable, the alternate manager can step in and um oversee the facility. Assistant staff member, typically filled by promoting a qualified caregiver or med tech who already works in the facility. So this is something that I teach all my clients to do is to so we're going to get into, live-in caregiver. So the live-in caregiver that you initially want to have in your facility, you want to have a space. So if you have a 4 bed, a 6 bed, try to get a room or a basement or some type of in-law suite, maybe upstairs, that you can convert to a living quarters for your live-in caregiver. And then when I mention in the living caregiver is because they're there on a regular basis. They're not there all the time. Obviously, they take breaks and stuff like that, but they're there the majority of the time. So since they're there the majority of the time, it would be it's wise to have them also take the manager's training, something that you pay for. So it's a value add for them. And then they have the training. So they got the training, which is also a part of over your overall retention strategy to keep them there. So if you pay for their training, now they're assisted living manager, they sign a contract with you for however long since you paid for the training to work with you, and they're your alternate manager. You're the primary manager, but now you have a actual manager on the premises at all times. That's like a game changer. So, and you usually don't have to pay them any extra than what they already getting paid as a caregiver, but there are bonuses and stuff that you can offer since they're doing a little bit more work when needed. So I wouldn't say just dump all your manager's responsibilities on them on top of them being a caregiver. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying have them trained and able to manage if ever the need comes, and that could be your alternate manager as well. And when if you don't have the live-in manager and you just have another manager in the community that you have an alternate, there's usually nothing you have to pay that person because you won't need them unless it's like an emergency or something like that. So that's why we have to pay at zero. Delegate nurse. So you have a delegate nurse that's PRN. So you use them as on an as needed basis, typically scheduled monthly or quarterly base on residents' needs. I would definitely have the nurse come in at least once a month to make sure she's doing, checking, make sure the residents are everything, conducting residence assessments and developing care plans, ensure proper medical management protocols, oversees compliance with medical regulations, and provide training to caregivers. So your delegate nurse can also train your med techs and do CPR classes. So that can keep, she'll keep all your staff licensed and compliant as well. Another thing I wanted to cover about the oh, and then they have to come regardless. Each resident has to have a 45-day check anyway, so they'll be coming for each resident every 45 days. So if you can schedule all of that, pretty much in the same day, then that'd be good as well. If they can get on the rotation where she's coming pretty much the same, either twice every 45 days, every 45 days, so all the residents could be seen pretty much in the next same couple days. And then you have a live, then we can talk again about the live-in med tech. So all your staff, all your caregivers, you don't want to, you don't hire a caregiver that doesn't have med tech training. And your nurse can hire, I mean, can train med techs most of the time. Most nurses can train caregivers to be med techs. So your nurse can train your med techs. But however they come, you can't, it defeats the purpose to have a caregiver in there that doesn't have a med tech because they have to pass meds or be trained to pass meds. Um, and this is, like I said, your facility cornerstone. Your living caregiver she basically forms the foundation of your care model, providing consistent presence and relationship building with the residents. Direct resident care handles daily ADL daily ADLs, meal prep, and resident engagement, medication administration, certified dispense medication according to state regulation, and staff supervision, coordinates with hourly caregiver, and may serve as a on-site manager. That's why we have the caregiver get, the live-in get trained as a manager. And the monthly pay for the live-in should be around. This is in different markets, but we try to stay at least 4,000 to 4,500. And then you got your hourly med tech certified caregiver. So they play more of a supporting role for and essential functions, a supporting role for essential functions. Hourly med techs provide critical support to your living caregivers, covering peak care times and ensuring proper staffing ratios are maintained. So if you have we'll talk about how the schedule looks here shortly, but they your hourly caregiver comes in, conducts activities and certain meals, light housekeeping, and just really just helping out the living and giving the living a break. The living can sometimes, if everything is calm and the hourly med tech caregiver is coming in and doing some activities, the live-in caregiver can go sit down and or go take a nap, go take a rest, go take a couple hours to themselves, go run some errands or whatever they need to do, stuff like that. So that's the importance of having that hourly caregiver. So assist with daily activities, administration medication as well, document care provided, so they're doing all the things that the living is doing, and everybody, they have to maintain the document, support meal and preparation, um, support meal preparation and service, engage residents in activities like we discussed. So they might come in, whatever the shift may look like. I'm gonna show you the shift in a second. They might come in, do a lunch and prepare dinner, pass, if there's afternoon meds, do an activity. Um, depending on how late they stay, they can, they're gonna take showers and get them ready for their nighttime stuff. So, and all of this is very helpful to your living. So obviously one person can't do it. So you're giving this living a support besides the manager yourself or whoever you hire. So the minimum hourly rate is, and this depends on what area you live in, which state or city. But we typically you're not in Maryland, you're not, 17 is even low. But we typically schedule 30 hours a week and give you an example of about $2,000 a month for that hourly caregiver, basically a little bit over part-time. And then they're just they're there to help. They're flexible and stuff like that. So as and this may be you might don't need them to come in until you got three residents, and then they might come in on minimum hours, three residents, and then four, five, six. Their hours will definitely increase, so they might go from 30 to 40, hours a week as you have more residents. Uh-huh. So this is the monthly staff cost. So the majority of your cost is going into your living. Your delegating nurse is 175. Alternate member is only is zero. You're not paying your alternate because they're just on the paperwork pretty much. And therefore emergencies, you pay them PRN and stuff like that. Just like the nurse pretty much, as needed. Assisted living manager, that chunk, we said starting at 17 could easily end up, around 2,500 a month. If you're hiring outside management, we suggest you do this, you cover this so you can keep that money in house, especially on your first facility. And then your hourly med tech is coming in, at a certain bed count, say two, say three residents. Um, when they start doing at least, 20, 30 hours, and as your residents go up, so you go four, five, six residents, now they probably working 35 to 40 hours a week. Why this staffing structure works, because you got to think of quality first, um, efficiency, and then flexibility, and it all converges in the middle is a very optimized staffing. So this structure helps us, maintain the quality of the care, gives us the flexibility to go up and down the staff is needed because we don't need, our hourly caregiver coming in for 40 hours if we only got two residents. We need them, and we can't have them coming in for 20 hours when we got six residents. So we got to keep some flexibility. We got to make sure it's efficient, and everybody knows what we're doing and how we're doing it. So you're keeping your schedule really flexible, and your staff is aware of what's going on. So this is a sample of a shift. So the weekday shift coverage example is from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Live-in caregivers, morning ADLs, medication, breakfast, and lunch. So from 7 a.m. she's up to 1. And then say if your hourly caregiver comes in from 1 to 7, then your living caregiver could go take that break, go get some rest, while the hourly caregiver is arranging, for afternoon activities and dinner preparation and possibly preparing for a bedtime, like changing them in the night clothes and stuff like that. And then the living caregiver returns for the evening, pass meds or and overnight coverage, where she, is going to be in a situation where she doesn't have to be, walking around, but she just kind of be alert throughout the evening. And, with bed alarms and cameras and stuff like that, we can basically, you know, make sure everybody's safe in their bed at all times. And that's basically how a weekday shift would look. Um, and then here's a weekend shift coverage, modified weekend structure. Weekends typically require less intensive care management as there are fewer medical appointments. Family visits can provide additional support, and the pace is generally more relaxed. Living caregiver provides all day care, medication, and meals. Living continues coverage with all on-call support availability. Our hourly caregivers available on all on-call support. So she'll probably come in for 4 to 6 hours on that weekend. And this all depends again on how many residents you have. This approach maintains quality care while reducing weekend labor costs, allowing your facility to operate efficiently while still meeting all residents' needs. Scalability considerations, growing your assisted living business. Your staffing model should evolve as your residents and acuity levels change. This flexibility is key to maintaining profitability while delivering quality care. So your initial structure base model with living caregiver, part-time hourly staff, and PRN nurse. Mid growth, hourly at out add hourly caregiver hours as consensus grows to 5 to 6 residents, like we discussed, and full capacity. You promoting your so at 6 residents, promote your live-in to manager role, increase nurse visits for complex residents, and obviously we're going to increase the hourly care caregiver hours. So she'll probably go from part-time to full-time. Staff training strategies, invest in knowledge, um, reap quality returns, Cross training, train all staff to cover multiple responsibilities, creating a versatile team. Medication certifications for all caregivers, that's mandatory. Don't it's not even worth having a caregiver in there who can't pass meds. Um, Basic administration skills for backup. Everybody should know how to do paperwork and document. First aid and emergency protocols, that's obvious. You have to, everybody has to know the policies and procedures for emergencies, know where all the first aid kits and stuff are. In any emergency or disaster policies, you got to make sure everybody's up to par on that. Then leadership development, identify nutrient management potential in your team. Assisted living manager certification, mentorship from experienced managers, gradual introduction to administrative duties. This is important when we start discussing elevating your living caregiver to assisted living manager. And then compliance training, maintain all required certifications and specialized training, and refresher course, state specific requirement tracking, and document all completed training. So all the training that everybody has to be documented. All the continued education is going to be documented, and a lot of this stuff could be done on what is that train? It's called ADL um training. It's a site. Um, it'll come to me. It's a site that we use for refreshers for like your 80-hour management. You have to get a 20-hour refresher. Um, and then then your nurse can do a lot of this stuff as well. So your delegated nurse is going to be able to do a lot of the trainings, for, train your staff as well. So that's another thing that you're going to need your nurse for to continue training. So meeting state requirements, small assisted living operators must navigate complex regulatory requirements while maintaining operational efficiency. Your staffing model must account for both compliance and practicality. Maintain required staff to resident ratios at all times, typically 1 to 6 during the day, 1 to 10 at night in most cases. But these facilities, what we're talking about, they're getting like it's 2 to 1, or 2 to 1 caregiver, 2 to 1 resident to caregiver. So that's like amazing. So we're in what we're discussing, we're at a great staff ratio. Medication protocol, ensure all staff administrative medicine have proper certification and follow strict documentation procedures. Again, we talk about this a lot because it's important. And once you start the licensing process, you'll see that the state is going to require that all of your caregivers are Medicaid trained. I mean, medication trained, not Medicaid. Med techs and Medicaid. They could pass meds. Documentation, and another thing is important, is documentation. Maintain thorough records of care plans, medication administration, incidents, and daily residence condition. These are just documents that have to be, like care notes that have to be filled out on a daily basis from each caregiver. And then emergency preparedness, develop clear protocols for various emergencies, ensure all staff receive regular training. Um, when you're hiring and bringing your caregivers in, one of the first things that y'all gonna go through is that, emergency and disaster protocols based on your policies and procedures, because you're not going to get a license unless that's there. So you already gonna have it by the time you start hiring. So you just want to make sure that your staff, everybody is well aware, has a copy, have a signed copy that they went through the training, they know it, and they can actually implement it. And then you also want to make sure that you're doing drills. So like every 60 days you're doing like drills on different emergencies, just to say keep your preparedness up to par. Staff retention strategies, so competitive pay, stable. Oh man, I spilled my water. Uh Staff stability. I mean competitive pay, stable schedules, housing benefit, that's where you live in, recognition. You always want to, present awards and let people know who's doing great and how much you appreciate them, stuff like that. Training, uh like we talk about with the nurse could do the med tech training, the CPR, first aid, and then also elevating to the assisted living managers, elevating your caregivers to assisted living managers position. And then either other up and even there's other opportunities with like getting them out in the community to help develop the marketing. If some of them are more, if you got a caregiver who's more outspoken and wants to kind of get out into the community, encourage that. Don't shy away from, taking them from one position and putting them into the next. If they seem like they'll be a great community liaison, definitely train them and, promote them to that situation as well to start, building the relationships in the community, getting them out in the community with brochures, business cards, marketing kits, and stuff like that to further, your growth and your scalability as a not just an assisted living facility, but a brand if you plan on getting more facilities up and running. Cost control tactics, PRN nursing model utilized as needed. Nursing visits instead of employing a full-time nurse monthly monthly while maintaining quality oversight. So utilizing a PRN model, live-in efficiency, employee live-in caregiver model that provides 24/7 presence. That doesn't mean 24 hours woke, but just 24-hour presence at a low cost, then a 3 hour 3 8 hour shift rotation, which could get very expensive quick. So that's why we use the live-in model. And then we talk again about the internal promotions. Designate your alternate manager from existing staff to eliminate additional salary expenses while meeting regulatory requirements. So you'll have your assistant living manager, alternate manager in the facility at all times, which is an awesome thing to do. Okay. And again, we just look at some of the revenue versus staffing. And then we get into these grids are kind of basic, so we can't really see nothing there. So the key takeaways is just having a very, well thought out hybrid staffing model. Combining live-in and hourly staff creates both stability and flexibility while controlling costs. Because like I said in the beginning, if you don't control these costs, they'll eat you alive, and you'll be wondering why, everybody's making money, on these smaller facilities, and you just feel like you're just bleeding money. That's if you try to do this with like 8 hour shifts, or 12-hour shifts, and you paying hourly. That eats up a lot of your profit. So you definitely want to consider this a live-in model with the hourly staff, um, hybrid model. The leadership investment training in live-in caregivers for management roles creates career paths and operational continuity, which is very important. You want your caregivers who, especially your living caregiver, to really believe in what you're doing, um, to really understand the process of how to not only just care for the residents, but how to maintain the actual business. So once they get trained, you show them different things, because then guess what? When you go to the next facility and you start focusing on that, you could promote her to the manager, have another live-in come in, they'll be making great money, and you'll be on to your next facility. And you know what she knows, because you know that she's been there for however many months or years in that business as a caregiver and as a manager that you train, and that creates an opportunity for her, and it creates for an opportunity for the next caregiver, the next living caregiver to come in, and then you just keep repeating that model, bringing that manager over to your new one, so on and so forth. And then strategic cost control, PRN, internal promotions, and cross train to maximize efficiency without sacrificing quality. Sustainable margins, target keeping staffing costs under 35% of your revenue for long-term business viability. This staff model ensures high quality care, regulatory compliance, and profitability for a small residential assisted living home. So if you want to get started, we're running a special this month. But if it's if it's after August, feel free to just contact us or check out what we have on allenchain.com. We can help you set up, we help small assisted living operators build efficiency, compliance, stay compliant with all the laws and the regulatory stuff, and profitable, which is the most important thing, through practical operation strategies. So give us a call, 443-906-3603, and visit us at allenchaney.com. Peace.